The Ego Tunnel, The Science of the Mind and the Myth of the Self. Thomas Metzinger. Metzinger argues that the self is an illusion, a kind of user interface created by the brain. Philosophically rigorous but engaging, it draws heavily from cognitive neuroscience and phenomenology. Introduction. In The Ego Tunnel, The Science of the Mind and the Myth of the Self, philosopher Thomas Metzinger explores the nature of consciousness and the self, proposing that our subjective experience of being is a construct generated by the brain, a phenomenon he refers to as the ego tunnel. He argues that this construct creates the illusion of a unified, persistent self, while in reality, no such entity exists independently. Metzinger examines the implications of this perspective for understanding human cognition, the nature of reality, and the future of consciousness studies. Chapter 1. The Appearance of a World. Metzinger begins by discussing how consciousness serves as a representation of the world, creating a unified reality during conscious experiences. He contrasts this with deep sleep, where such awareness is absent, highlighting that both dreams and waking states present a world to our consciousness. Metzinger suggests that consciousness is a unique phenomenon that has evolved to enable self-awareness and inwardness. He posits that the representation of the world emerged relatively recently in biological evolution, possibly only a few million years ago, with rudimentary forms dating back around 200 million years in ancient mammals. This chapter sets the stage for understanding consciousness as a constructed model of reality. Chapter 2. A Tour of the Tunnel. In this chapter, Metzinger delves into the structural features of conscious experience, addressing several key problems. 1. The one-world problem. He explores how the brain achieves the unity of consciousness, binding diverse sensory inputs into a coherent experience. 2. The now problem. Metzinger examines the sensation of the present moment, discussing how consciousness creates the experience of temporal immediacy. 3. The reality problem. He discusses why individuals are naturally inclined toward naive realism, believing they perceive reality directly, when in fact, their experience is a constructed model. 4. The ineffability problem. Metzinger addresses the challenges in articulating the qualitative aspects of conscious experience, suggesting that some elements may be beyond verbal expression. 5. The evolution problem. He considers the evolutionary advantages that consciousness may have provided, such as enhanced decision-making and social coordination. 6. The who problem. Metzinger questions the nature of the entity that experiences consciousness, challenging the traditional notion of a stable, enduring self. Through this tour, Metzinger illustrates that our perception of a seamless, unified reality is the result of complex neural processes that construct an internal model, which we then experience as the external world. Chapter 3. The Reality Tunnel. Metzinger introduces the concept of the ego tunnel, describing it as a metaphor for the way our brains generate a simplified, selective model of reality. He explains that this model is transparent to us. We are unaware of the complex neural processes behind our conscious experience, leading us to believe we are in direct contact with reality. This transparency results in naive realism, where individuals assume their perceptions accurately reflect the external world. Metzinger argues that understanding this constructed nature of experience is crucial for comprehending the mind and the self. Chapter 4. The Self Model. In this chapter, Metzinger challenges the traditional notion of a unified, persistent self. He proposes that the self is not an entity but a dynamic model created by the brain, a self-model that integrates various neural processes to produce the experience of being a coherent individual. This self-model is essential for controlling behavior and understanding others, facilitating social interactions and cooperation. Metzinger emphasizes that while the self-model is a useful tool, recognizing its constructed nature reveals that the self is, in fact, an illusion. Chapter 5. Out-of-body experiences and the self. Metzinger explores out-of-body experiences, OBS, as phenomena that provide insight into the constructed nature of the self-model. He explains how OBS occur when the brain's representation of the body and its location in space is disrupted, leading individuals to perceive themselves as existing outside their physical bodies. These experiences demonstrate that our sense of self and embodiment are flexible and can be altered, further supporting the idea that the self is a brain-generated model rather than a fixed entity. Chapter 6. The Social Dimension of the Self. In this chapter, Metzinger discusses the role of mirror neurons in social cognition, highlighting how they enable individuals to understand and empathize with others by simulating their actions and emotions. He suggests that the self model is not only crucial for personal identity but also for navigating social interactions. By allowing us to predict and interpret the behavior of others, the self model facilitates complex social coordination and cultural development. Metzinger underscores that our sense of self is deeply intertwined with our social environment. Chapter 7. Free Will and the Illusion of Agency. Metzinger addresses the concept of free will, presenting neuroscientific evidence that suggests our conscious decisions are preceded by unconscious neural activity. This challenges the traditional view of free will, indicating that our sense of agency may be an illusion. Metzinger argues that while we experience ourselves as the direct causes of our actions, this perception is part of the self-model constructed by the brain. Recognizing this illusion has significant implications for our understanding of personal responsibility and moral accountability. Chapter 8. Altered States of Consciousness. Metzinger suggests that studying altered states of consciousness can offer valuable insights into the underlying mechanisms of the ego tunnel. These experiences, such as lucid dreaming, meditation, and drug-induced states, reveal that the sense of self and the continuity of experience are fragile constructions. When these states alter or temporarily suspend elements of the self-model, individuals may encounter a direct awareness of the tunnel itself. This makes it possible to observe how consciousness can be manipulated and reshaped, supporting Metzinger's argument that there is no stable, unified self, but rather a dynamic and ever-changing model. These altered experiences serve to reinforce the view that the self is not a metaphysical essence but a flexible cognitive process. Chapter 9. Consciousness Technologies. In this chapter, Metzinger shifts focus to the future, particularly the development of technologies that might manipulate consciousness. He discusses brain-computer interfaces, neuroenhancement, virtual reality, and other technologies that could profoundly change the way we experience ourselves and the world. Metzinger raises ethical questions about these developments. If we can redesign or modify the self-model, should we? He emphasizes the importance of understanding the philosophical and psychological consequences before embracing such innovations. The potential for creating synthetic forms of consciousness or artificially intelligent systems with self-models brings a pressing need for ethical frameworks that acknowledge the risks of suffering, loss of autonomy, or manipulation. Chapter 10. Out of the Tunnel. In the final chapter, Metzinger returns to the broader philosophical implications of the ego tunnel. He reiterates that while the ego and the self seem real, they are not entities in themselves but the product of processes occurring in the brain. Escaping the tunnel in a literal sense is not possible, as the tunnel is the condition of our conscious existence. However, recognizing that we are in a tunnel allows us to gain a new kind of autonomy, not by eliminating the illusion, but by seeing through it. Metzinger proposes that such insight can lead to greater ethical clarity, compassion, and responsibility, as we come to see not only our own selves as illusions but also the selves of others. This recognition does not devalue human experience but instead offers a more honest and potentially more humane foundation for society and the self. Conclusion. The ego tunnel is a philosophical and neuroscientific exploration of consciousness that challenges traditional ideas about the mind and the self. Metzinger's central thesis, that the self is a model constructed by the brain, and that our experience of being a unified individual is a kind of illusion, offers a provocative rethinking of human subjectivity. The book traverses questions of perception, ethics, altered states, and technology, ultimately advocating a view of the mind that is both scientifically grounded and ethically aware. By guiding readers through the tunnel of conscious experience, Metzinger invites a more lucid and compassionate engagement with the nature of selfhood in the modern world.